Am I just dead? Acting entirely on instinct, you launch yourself sideways, only just in time to avoid a searing beam of light so bright you involuntarily squeeze your eyes shut and look away. Not friendly. Not friendly. As your vision returns, you look at where the beam had been focused and see warped and molten metal surrounding a deep gash that runs along the part of the catwalk where you'd been stood, and then up the wall near the entrance. Through the vertical slice taken out of the wall, you can see the beam had penetrated all the way to the rear of the stairwell, slicing through the first set of steps in the progress. Looking back to the machine that had just torn through the interior of the O'Brien with ease, you see the same electrical sparks and glowing light at the front of the craft. Okay, I gotta... What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Not a great work day. The same survival instinct which made you dive out of the way of the last bolt kicks in and you push off the catwalk a split second before another pulse of light launches from the machine, liquefying the steel where you'd stood moments before. Grabbing the edge of the entrance into the stairwell, you redirect yourself and push off the wall, sending yourself up past the half-melted set of steps and towards the doors into the thoroughfare. As you stumble into the corridor, you grab your radio. Hansen, get to the Juno right now. We need to leave. You yell as you bolt for the central hub. Hansen, do you hear me? We need to get off the ship immediately. Oh my. Hansen! You scream one last time before sprinting down the remainder of the four-side thoroughfare. As you pass the boundary into the central hub, the corridor behind you is illuminated with another intense flash of light. You don't turn around, instead continuing at speed towards the airlock where the Juno had been left. Hansen, I'm serious. We need to leave now before the ship's torn to pieces. Get off the bridge and get down here. With no response from Hansen, your mind races. You're doing your best to formulate a plan when you look back at the four-side thoroughfare and see it's scored with huge cuts that run from floor to ceiling, the liquefied metal of the ship's structure framing their paths. Ah, damn it! The same instinct that had saved you in the hangar kicks in and you turn towards the airlock, racing towards the open entrance and the stairs you can see in the distance. As you head towards the open cockpit of the armored frame, you try and remember the startup sequence that will let you pilot it out of here. You begin the climb up the Juno's chest, and as you reach the top, look inside to see the pilot's seat empty. Hansen! God damn it, Cruz, where are you? Looking back towards the entrance of the airlock and seeing no one in the distance, you know you have a choice to make. Alright, I need to get out of here. You can't ignore the impulse driving you to just get out of here. An instinct that is soon proven to be correct as a blast of energy tears through the airlock. Look, waiting there doesn't help anyone. I need to at least drive this thing. I can always come back for Hansen. Now, if the choice was go back for Hansen or flee, tougher decision, but yeah. If Hansen wasn't aware of what was going on with your radio not working, you had no way to contact him. He was on his own. Plus, with the blast getting closer to the armored frame, if you didn't leave now, you may not have the chance in a few seconds. Okay, I'm driving now. Been a while. Before you buckle yourself in, you begin flicking the switches and pressing the buttons to activate the armored frame. Ugh. A wave of nausea hits you, and you pause mid-sequence as the memory of the last time you started up an armored frame returns. You breathe in deeply, hold it, and exhale. No time for that. Not now. Doing your best to ignore the queasy feeling in your stomach, you carry on with the process of getting the Juno ready for takeoff. Sorry about this, Hansen. Sorry about what, sir? As Hansen's voice crackles over your radio, you look up at the cockpit's entrance, just in time to move out of the way as the ensign drops down into the pilot's seats. Nice of you to get the Juno up and running, Lieutenant. You were gonna wait for me, right? You buck yourself into the passenger seat as Hansen instantly picks up where you left off and continues the startup process. Get us out of here, Ensign. Now, Ensign! Yeah, whatever you say, sir. In just a few seconds, Hansen pulls a lever that seals the Juno's cockpit and works his way through the entire startup sequence. Even before the main monitor is active, he pulls back on the flight sticks, and you feel the rumble of the Juno's engines moving the armored frame away from the ship as the main view screen switches on, showing the O'Brien shrinking into the distance. What do? One minute I'm pulling out the black box, the next I can see a light show going on outside and some kind of laser beam nearly cuts me in half. I didn't do anything. There was something in the hangar and then it went off. It was tearing the whole ship apart from the inside. So you tripped an AF's weapon system or something? Can't let you anywhere near these things without you causing problems. You have to continue your protest at Hansen when you see a column of light penetrate the surface of the O'Brien. Whoa! Evasive maneuvers! Ensign, evasive maneuvers! What the fuck? That's it! It's got to be some sort of prototype AF or something. I've never seen a weapon like it. Tore through the O'Brien's hull like paper. What the hell kind of weapon is that? No idea, but we need to warn the Gun-Dog. Get back to the Gun-Dog right now. What? Leave that thing out here? Do you think we've got the firepower to take it on, Hansen? Whatever that thing is, it just shredded the O'Brien from the inside. Out with a weapon we've never encountered before. Our comms are out, and if it takes us down and gets a drop on Gun-Dog, they'll be sunk in seconds. Hansen looks from you to the screen showing the strange craft atop the O'Brien's hull, and after a moment of deliberation turns the Juno towards the Gun-Dog and sets off at maximum thrust. We can warn them. And maybe Dylan can get it on the long-range systems and take it down with the cannons before it's... What was that? Damn it! You grip tightly onto your seat as Hansen struggles to reorient the armored frame. Something had just struck you. Hard. As the ensign regains control over the Juno, you see the enemy machine disappearing into the distance on the main monitor. That thing just slammed into us and took off like nothing happened. What the hell is it? It's heading straight to the Gun-Dog. Go! Now! What do you think I'm doing? Hansen barks as he resumes maximum thrust, causing your machine to judder and shake. As the enemy shrinks into the distance on the Juno's monitor, Hansen doesn't let up the speed, maintaining the high level of acceleration. The tremors you can feel in the cockpit grow more intense, the faster the armored frame moves. Grabbing onto the straps holding you in place with both hands, you pass your eyes over the readouts on the cockpit's various dials and submonitors. Almost all of them are flashing warnings or alerts, with the needles on the majority of the gauges deep in red. Cruz, if you keep this up, the Juno's going to fall apart. Slow it down! Hansen smirks at your order, scoffing as he somehow finds more acceleration that increases the vibrations, so that you feel like they'll shake you to pieces any moment now. This is my Juno, Lieutenant. Don't tell me how to treat her. She's not as delicate as she looks. We're gonna need all she's got to get back to the Gun-Dog before that thing. Cruz, if we get back there and we're dead... Yeah. You can write me up to the captain when that happens. You groan and close your eyes, trying to ignore the beeping that started and the high-pitched whine you hear coming from the back of the cockpit. We should at least try to radio to the Gun-Dog. I know it wasn't working well before, but we should at least get on that. Try it, at least. You're aware of every second that passes as the two of you race back to the Gun-Dog, the tension worsened by the near-constant screaming of the warning systems. With Hansen in control, all you can do is hope that you can get back in time before the Gun-Dog can be cut to pieces by the weapon you'd seen make short work of the O'Brien. You've lost track of how long you've been pursuing the enemy when suddenly some garbled static bursts from the speakers and a shrill and panicked voice screeches at you. Harvey, this is Lieutenant Lord of the JFS Gun-Dog. We're under attack by an unknown enemy unit. Any JCF ships in range, please respond. This is Lieutenant. Lord, this is Gun-Dog 1 approaching the Gun-Dog at... Cruz, where have you been? Get back to the ship right now. We're under fire from something. Hansen rolls his eyes as he's cut off by Vanessa's demand. Roger that, ma'am. Gun-Dog 1 returning... No! Shaking his head rather than following up with an answer, Hansen quickly flicks a few switches, and you see the readouts in some monitors switch to display information about the armored frame's weapons system. As he does this, you turn your attention to the main monitor. In the distance, you can see a small lights flickering in and out surrounding a point in space. The on-screen readouts inform you is the Gun-Dog. Ooh, that's not looking good. Oh no, it's firing, okay. With the Juno approaching the ship at speed, you can see that the lights are actually rounds being rapidly fired from the Gun-Dog's point defense system, a collection of rotary cannons mounted on turrets along the ship's exterior. You can tell from their short bursts and the erratic shifts in their direction they're firing that the machine you ran into on the O'Brien is moving both quickly and unpredictably, with the automated cannons unable to keep up. Lord, this is Gun-Dog 1, we're back at... Cruz, what the hell is this thing?
How would I know?
Useless. You hear Hansen mutter something under his breath, too quietly for the communication system to pick up. Just destroy it, we've already taken some heavy hits to the port hull.
Yeah, I get it. Just tell Dees to watch that anti-air.
As the Juno closes in on the Gun-Dog, you watch the trajectory of the shots being fired from the point defense system, knowing that they indicate where the enemy machine was rather than where it is. So you just gotta lead the cannons. Based on the speed at which it's moving, you know that if you're to have a chance of taking this thing down, you'll need to figure out a way to get ahead of it. You're about to make this observation to Hansen, but you see a deep focus on his face. His eyes tracing the path the enemy moves along as it weaves around the barrage coming from the ship. With a sudden flurry of motion on the controls, Hansen adjusts the armored frame's trajectory, sending it soaring uncomfortably close to the Gun-Dog's bridge, just in time to intercept the strange craft as it rises up from the far side of the ship.
We're using the same evasive maneuvers. Amateur!
Hansen yells. Slamming down on the pedals, Hansen positions the Juno over the top of the enemy, and you hear a heavy click as he pulls the trigger on the right flight stick.
Too easy!
Alright, come on, let's do this. Good job, Hansen. Hopefully our weapon's actually working and it isn't doing like the weird like sci-fi apocalypse thing where it's like, oh, the enemy is invincible to all guns now, so the military is useless. As the rounds from the machine gun slam into the target, Hansen presses down on a button on the left flight stick, sending a volley of missiles roaring away from the Juno's shoulder pod and directly into the enemy, engulfing it in an explosion.
Doesn't matter how powerful the machine is if the pilot's no good. What?
As the smoke clears, staring back at you is the machine that you'd just seen hit by a swarm of missiles, each one individually powerful enough to destroy another armored frame. Instead of being totally destroyed, the craft looks completely fine. You don't even see a hint of a scorch mark on its armor.
What is this thing made of?
Hansen snarls, pulling the trigger on the right flight stick again, this time emptying the entire magazine into the target. As if totally indifferent to Hansen's assault, the craft turns to face you, and you see an increasingly bright light begin to build in front of it, with sparks and crackles of electricity running along its nearby surfaces.
Move! Don't tell me how to pilot!
The ensign yells back at you as he navigates the Juno away from the beam that tears through the space you just occupied. Only seconds after what felt like a moment of triumph, the tables had been so thoroughly turned, you find yourself being slammed from side to side as Hansen executes a rapid series of maneuvers in an attempt to escape the enemy's pursuit. Huge beams of energy blast through the space around you every few seconds as the Juno dives, climbs, rolls, and banks. As he weaves through the hail of bullets coming from the Gun-Dog's own defensive systems and the attacks from the enemy machine, Hansen's breathing grows faster and faster. Hansen, you can't outrun it! We're going to need to figure something out! His eyes flicking rapidly back and forth from monitor to gauge, and his hands twitching quickly, sending the Juno darting from place to place. Hansen doesn't seem to notice you at all.
Hansen! Hansen! What?
This isn't working. We need to do something.
Don't tell me how to pilot.
Stow it. You can't keep this up forever. We need to figure something out. As you yell at Hansen, you get thrown into the side of the cockpit by a high-speed turn that he pulls off just as a huge beam passes overhead, illuminating the cockpit as its brightness fills the monitors. Is there any way we could, because this beam is a powerful weapon, is there any way we could get it to somehow shoot itself? Like with a big mirror or something? I don't know. That seems like impractical.
Go on then, sir. What do you have in mind?
We should use the ship's main gun, use Dalton's creation. Yeah. If we can Yeah, because if we can stall it, you rack your brain trying to come up with some way to stop this impervious enemy. Right, if we can't damage it, maybe we can at least sort of bind it, ensnare it. You just want to take a direct hit from frame-busting missiles and come away without a scratch. If that didn't harm it, then nothing else the Juno wielded would be able to stop it. Your thoughts race as you try to come up with a solution. How do you destroy the invulnerable? That's it! What? If the missiles won't take that thing down, nothing else we got is going to be able to destroy it. Great, so what, Lieutenant? You think we should just surrender now, let it destroy us? That's not what I mean. If we can't destroy it, then we need to change tactics. We need to try and disable it. Hansen glances across to you with a sneer, clearly about to criticize your idea, but before he can respond, his attention is taken by another blast from the enemy's energy weapon, which he evades at the very last moment. Dalton's been working on a compound to seal hull breaches, but he's been turning it into ammunition for the Juno's machine gun, too. If it works, we can trap this thing. That stuff's made to set hard enough to act as a new hull. There's no way it could escape. Hansen scoffs at you, despite being in the middle of carrying out a maneuver involving suddenly braking, dropping downward through space, and letting the enemy machine fly overhead so that he can fire another volley of machine gun rounds at its underside. If it works, Lieutenant, what if it doesn't? Are you going to trust that little dork with our lives? Have you got a better idea, Ensign? Everything else we have in terms of ammunition we know doesn't work. This one, we think might not work. That's what I thought. As the Juno continues to shake from the strain its engines are under, and the sudden spins and turns Hansen is making it perform, you manage to lean toward the communication system and press down on a button that allows you to broadcast. Gun-Dog, this is Gun-Dog 1. Patch you through to Cadet Grange. Don't touch my controls. Shut up, Hansen. I repeat, Gun-Dog, this is Gun-Dog 1. Patch me through to Cadet... What do you want, Kraft? We're just about to send Rumney out, but the launch pads are damaged, so they're coming out the main hangar door. Deal with that thing for a few more minutes. Nothing we've got on the Junos are going to stop it, Lord. Just put me through to Dalton. He's busy getting Haru's AF out there. I'm in charge of this operation, Kraft, so don't go distracting my... Lord, shut up! Put me through to Dalton right now! Lieutenant, we're doing our best to get Haru out there. We just need Dalton, forget about Haru. Did you manage to make any more of your sealant ammunition? I managed to make enough for 2 whole magazines, but... Send it out, now! Oh, but, Lieutenant, I have not tested... Now, Dalton! Yes, sir. The cockpit shudders as the armored frame breaks suddenly, following a tight corner that takes it around the rear of the Gun-Dog and out of sight of the attacker. Although you're slammed backwards, Hansen remains focused and unleashes a barrage of machine gun fire just as the enemy soars past you. As you recover, you glare at Hansen. Was that necessary? Never waste ammo, Craft! Before the other craft can respond, Hansen quickly maneuvers away, and you see the empty magazine eject from the Juno's machine gun. Grange, send the ammo out on a supply launch heading 0 Mark 30 full thrust. Yes, sir, this is 0 Mark 30, launch in 4 minutes. 4 minutes? No, you'll launch it now! Get it done in 2, kid! Yes, sir. Now that's fine. With the enemy back in pursuit, Hansen brings the Juno up to full thrust as he navigates the armored frame above the Gun-Dog into a location you know has the most point defense coverage. The pressure from the sudden acceleration pins you against your seat, but you manage to turn to look at Hansen, the mocking he'd just given Dalton at the forefront of your mind despite everything. You watch as Hansen's eyes flick rapidly to the different screens and readouts within the cockpit, his hands moving almost too fast to perceive as he feathers the flight sticks to simultaneously evade the fire from the Gun-Dog and the attacking craft. Oh! You turn back to focus on the main monitor and see the enemy machine heading straight towards you, a charge that Hansen evades with a feint, at least at the last possible moment. You sigh, thinking that it probably wouldn't be a good time to distract the pilot. As the attacking craft speeds away into the distance before stopping suddenly and turning on its axis to head back towards the Gun-Dog, Hansen turns the Juno and speeds towards the front of the ship, moving to the location he'd instructed Dalton to send the ammunition. Oh, there it is! With the main monitor now focused on the open main hangar door, you can see Dalton, just as ordered, sending a supply launch rocket towards you. The launch, little more than a large sled with a series of thrusters attached, speeds through the void towards you, and in a smooth motion, Hansen moves to meet it. He deftly manipulates the armored frame's hands to grab the machine gun magazine tethered to it, without needing to stop. Pulling back just in time to evade another blast from the enemy cannon, Hansen slams the flight sticks forwards, sending the armored frame tearing through space and towards the opponents. That's better work, Craft! Before the craft can evade, Hansen brings the machine gun to bear on it and holds down the trigger, the rounds all meeting their mark. As the shots land, the enemy machine is engulfed in a sudden expanding mass that billows outwards from the point of impact and spreads all over its surface. Within seconds, the attacker is encased in a thick coating of Dalton's compound, which sets as suddenly as it had expanded, leaving the craft's long appendages visibly struggling against the material's restraining properties. Hey, that stuff's not bad! It's done good work! But we're not done yet. Hold on, Lieutenant! Despite being almost entirely encompassed in sealant, your foe was still heading right at you. Where the hell do you think you're going? Oh, Hansen yells, sending the Juno straight towards the enemy. You're not going anywhere! With an impact that reverberates violently through the cockpit, the armored frame slams into the oncoming craft. Go to hell! Ooh, nice. Ooh, a sword! Melee, yeah! You watch as... Well, it's not really a sword. It was a dagger, like sidearm thing, but... You watch as a rapid sequence of button presses on the right flight stick. Hansen commands the Juno to let go of its machine gun and draw its combat knife. The whole armored frame shakes with each impact as Hansen drives the knife over and over into one of the small portions of the exposed armor, showing amongst the mass of sealant. The world becomes a cacophony of noises of the clash of the knife on the armored surface of the enemy machine, the screams of the Juno's engines as they struggle to counteract the other craft's thrust, and the various alarms and warnings all fill the cockpit. 60! Or, sorry, go down! You! Hell! Suddenly you're forced back into your seat by a rush of acceleration. Hansen, what's going on? You just had managed to turn your head against the force of the thrust to see Hansen shunting the flight sticks back and forth and stomping on the pedals. Its engine must have cut out, but the controls have gone on ours. I can't stop them. As Hansen continues to struggle with the controls, Vanessa screeches at you over the radio, sounding more panicked than ever. Cruz, you're headed straight for the hangar. Change course, Cruz. I'm trying. Cruz, you're going to... Return from the O'Brien. April 23rd. Planetary calendar, 2:14. Despite Ensign Cruz gaining an advantage against the unknown enemy craft that had attacked the JFS Gun-Dog, a mechanical failure in the engines of his Juno 3 resulted in both the unidentified machine and the armored frame crashing into the ship's hangar. Lieutenant Craft and Ensign Cruz were both quickly extracted from the armored frame and sent to the ship's sickbay. Upon being cleared for duty, Lieutenant Craft is ordered to the hangar to help secure the enemy craft. Outer Jovian space. The hangar of the Jovian patrol ship, JFS Gun-Dog. Alright. Well, we got him good, that's for certain. You stretch your neck from side to side and roll your shoulders as you wait for the captain's judgment. Dr. Rosarium had done his best for the neck injury you'd acquired during Hansen's less-than-textbook landing, but the captain had been insistent that her sole security officer return to duty immediately. As a result, after a cursory once-over, the doctor had given you an anti-inflammatory injection on one side of your neck and an injection of painkillers on the other, before sending you on your way. This had left your neck numb and you with the vague sensation that your head could become detached at any moment, but at least you were up and about. Surveying the hangar, you know you should be thankful for this miracle. Both Hansen's Juno and the craft it had been fighting had entered the hangar at full thrust, If Dalton hadn't thought quickly and activated every single piece of arrestor gear available, the two machines would have torn straight through into the belly of the Gun-Dog. On top of that, they'd slammed into the storage container that held the tank he'd been keeping his experimental high-density foam in, causing it to rupture and coat the attacker in the substance, and adhere it to the hangar floor. With the machine stuck in place, it didn't take long for the Juno's engines to burn out as it pushed against the immovable objects. You make a mental note to give Dalton your thanks later. Not only had the rounds loaded with the substance worked perfectly, it had saved you, Hansen, and possibly the entire ship. What this did mean, though, was that the mysterious assailant, which had torn the O'Brien to pieces and nearly done the same to the Gun-Dog, was stuck, irremovably for the time being, right in the middle of the hangar. It had shown no activity since it went dead just outside the Gun-Dog, but having one of those eyes, highlight cameras exposed, didn't leave you. Is this craft secured, Lieutenant? Oh, yes, ma'am. To be honest, Cadet Grange's foam has done most of the work for us. With the amount of that stuff it's covered with, I don't see it making a move anytime soon. Even the tethers we used aren't really necessary. When you get back to Europa Colony, it'll probably be easier to remove the entire hangar block to get this thing rather than carve it out. Is that so? Yes, ma'am. You wait for a moment as the captain allows your response to her rhetorical question to hang in the air. As far as capturing enemy technology goes, this could have certainly gone more smoothly. Bolt of anger shoots through your body. More smoothly? As if you have any right to criticize things going badly. Sheesh. You need to suppress this reaction as the captain turns back towards you. Regardless, you've all done good work today, Lieutenant Craft. Cadet Grange. Oh, ma'am, yes, thank you. Dalton, who had been lurking at your side like a nervous shadow this entire time, squeaks, the unexpected compliment taking him completely by surprise. I mean, that's if the container hadn't been in that area, then we wouldn't have lost so much hangar space, and I'm sorry, that's... Yusuf did but gently elbow the cadet in his side. Which is a thank you, ma'am. Very good, cadet. Well then... The captain once again leaves a sentence to trail off half-formed. Whereas this manner of speech had previously left you disconcerted with its indication that there was something the captain was holding back, you'd found yourself no longer bothered by it. Whether this was because you were used to it or simply too tired to be perturbed was a matter you hadn't quite decided on. Dalton, on the other hand, was still clearly terrified by the concept of being in such close proximity to the captain, to the point where his nervousness was palpable. If it wasn't for the rustling of his jumpsuit caused by his nervous fidgeting, you felt there was a good chance you'd be able to hear his heartbeat racing. As the chief... As the chief... I finished my assessment of the craft, Captain. With an amount of grace that surprises you, the chief, having appeared from underneath the catwalk, grabs onto the handrail and effortlessly redirects her momentum, planting her feet firmly on the walkway you all stood on. Thank you, Chief Cathars. And your assessment? Hard to say, never seen anything like it. General structure is totally different from the humanoid construction you'd see on an AF. Whatever materials this thing's made of don't quite line up with what we see on Martian or Terran machines. Even the samples of that titanium they make on Lunar didn't have the kind of durability this thing showed. Based on the combat data from Cruise AF, even that did have been torn apart. Plus no indication of a traditional drive system, which... Your security assessment, Chief Cathars. You stiffen as a wave of realization hits you, causing a painful twinge in your neck. As soon as you got out of the sickbay, the captain had ordered you to secure the craft. In your current state, still running on leftover adrenaline and recently dosed up on medication, you'd followed that order to the letter, completely forgetting about assessing any potential risks. Right, yes, Captain. There's no sign to indicate that this craft is active anymore. No measurable electronic activity, no readings suggest an active reactor. Looks like the whole thing has been totally shut down. The only thing that showed anything was a boson count, surrounded by a massive amount of residual distortion. No idea why, though. You need a whole engine to put out the amount of arm registering around it. As far as I can tell, Captain, whatever this thing might be, it's not doing anything anytime soon. I see. And the pilots? If there's anyone in there, they aren't getting out. I've checked over all the visible portions of its structure, and there's no trace of cockpit, hatch, or entry panel. But with how strong Cadet Grange's confidence is, there's no way they'd be able to break through. Has it gone pretty heavy on the cyanocrilates, huh? Cadets. The chief asks with a wink. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am. It's a good thing, Cadet. If you hadn't, this thing might have been able to tear its way out and continue its rampage around the ship's insides. Best way I can put it, Captain, I hope they've got enough oxygen and emergency rations in there to last them until we get back to Europa, because we aren't getting them out. And you, Lieutenant. You'd hope that the chief's explanation would suffice, but the captain had turned her attention to you expectantly. And if I have anything else to add, surely I should, right? But I think that, in addition to what the chief said, that, yes, Lieutenant. You know, I tried to add something to the chief's statement. The more you tried to think, the more you realized how exhausted you were, mentally and physically. You turn to look at the crashed craft and catch a glint as the hangar light reflects off one of the eye-like camera lenses. Totally different to anything you'd seen in the armored frame. I don't think we can take account on this thing playing by our rules. Oh? Whatever this thing is, it doesn't look like any AF I've ever seen. It doesn't behave like one either. That of punishment it stood up to out there. I'm not sure we had anything to do with it going offline. And if that's just the machine, I wouldn't make any assumptions that it's a pilot either. You look back to the captain just as she turns her attention to the machine. The captain takes a moment to move to the railings and places her hands onto them, resting what little of her weight remains in this low gravity on the support whilst also drumming her fingers against them. As you watch Captain Barnamuse, you see the brief glimmer of a spark in her eyes. The slight change transforming her in front of you, from the consistently disinterested captain you know, to a canny, analytical version of herself. She turns back to face you, pivoting on the one hand she keeps on the railing. In that case, our priority is getting this back to Europa colony, where it can be investigated properly. The less time we have this on board, the less risk it poses to us. Chief Cathays, I want those engines online now. Cadet Grange, I want Ensign Cruz Juno fully operational and combat ready. If this decides to reactivate, I want to be ready for it. Lieutenant Craft, I want you on active patrol until Ensign Cruz is out of sickbay. You, Rumney, and Cruz will be carrying out patrols around the clock until we dock at Europa. This thing has shown itself to be full of surprises. Just because we can't see a way for the pilot to get out, doesn't mean there isn't one. Carry out a normal patrol, and then report back to me. I'll be in my quarters writing this up. Understood? The three of you snap to attention and throw a salute in perfect synchronization. Even the chronically fidgety Dalton maintains a perfectly still professional countenance. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Very good. Dismissed. With a shove against the railing, the captain launches herself towards the hangar entrance, and the three of you drop your stiff postures as soon as she's out of sight. Hell of a day, huh, Lieutenant? You roll your shoulders once again, trying to get rid of the stiffness that's working its way back into your neck. Let's unwind a bit. That's putting it mildly. As you think back over the day, it feels like it's been a week long with everything that has happened. It feels like you hadn't slept for that long either. You're not wrong, Chief. As you look back to the enemy craft, you can't help but feel like its exposed camera lens is pointing straight at you. Swallowing nervously, you turn away. The unwavering mechanical glare fills you with a sense of dread. So, what do you think? Is it really out of action? Like I told the captain, as far as I can tell, this thing isn't going anywhere soon. Still, doesn't mean I want to hang around with it glued to the inside of my hangar. The sooner we get back to Europa, the better. And to do that, I need to get the Gun-Dog's engines up and running. So I'm gonna go head back to the engine room. We all got jobs to do. No time to stand around chatting if we want to get our unexpected passenger back to Europa colony. Cadets? Chief! The main thruster module on Cruise Juno is completely fried. Don't bother trying to salvage it. It's going to need a wholesale replacement, understood?
Yes, Chief.
Alright then, both of you get to it.
With that, the Chief launches herself off a nearby railing and towards the hangar entrance. Much like you had with the captain earlier, you watch as she disappears, relaxing slightly once she's out of sight. As you look around your surroundings, you see that Dalton has already made his way towards Hansen's Juno, leaving you alone. You kick off the catwalk and begin to gently drift towards the hangar exit, taking one last look back at the hangar before you leave. The once unstoppable machine now sits totally still in the center of the hangar. Despite being encased in the rock-hard compound, the misgivings you felt about how out of commission it really was were hard to ignore. You'd never seen or even heard of a machine with the capabilities it had demonstrated, and although the Chief had assured the captain it wasn't going anywhere, you weren't so certain. Beyond that, the thought of the pilot concerned you the most. What kind of person did it take to pilot something like this? Your attention lingers on it for a little while longer, before you turn your attention back towards the exit. Time for patrol, then. I'll start by looking at this thing. You grip the railings and lean forward, shifting yourself into a position where you can view as much of the machine and the surrounding mass of rock-solid foam as possible. Just like the Chief said, no signs of activity, no signs of life. Your grip tightens as you remember your encounter with it. Even though you'd not been the one piloting, being there whilst Hansen had fought tooth and nail just to stay alive, had shown you how dangerous it was, how powerful. If it hadn't been for Dalton's foam rounds, how much longer would Hansen have been able to hold out? The fact that it had been almost unstoppable until suddenly deactivating had started to nag at you as you stared at it. Had it really been stopped? Or was there something else going on? Okay, so what's our task list? Visit engineering, visit the fire control. Okay. Alright, to the thoroughfare.